Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Sparkles of Gold, aka Nicolas Polimenakos. I wasn't planning on doing this video, but I thought I'd do a quick one on Jupiter and Aries. It's entering in. Jupiter's leaving Pisces, going into Aries on December 20th. You're probably going to watch this the day I put it out. I'm doing this video right on the night before when Jupiter's at 29 degrees Pisces. I'm going to briefly talk about a couple key words about this transit, which lasts for 5 months. And then I will mention a couple key things for each rising sign. I'm in the mood right now. I'm constructing a new setup here in my room, and I'm also using this as a test, but we might as well talk about this transit. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to show you a chart here on the screen. This chart right here, let's see if I can move this. Can I move this? Yes. You could see the date there. It's December 20th, 2022, 6:32 a.m. Pacific. That's when the ingress happens of Jupiter, which should be right. Where are you, Jupiter? Right there in Aries, 0 degrees, just left Pisces. Jupiter actually entered Aries earlier this year in May. I have a chart for that too. At 0 degrees. And then there's another moment here at the end of October that just happened. I think I want to say the 27th, when Jupiter was going retrograde and it hit the 0 degree point. They call this the Aries point in astrology. At that point too, you got any planets and cardinal signs that are 0 degrees? This is hitting you right now. This is the third one, the third hit that's happening this year. This happens with a lot of outer body transits where if you have something that's affected, you're going to most likely get the transit 3 times in a year and a half. Anyway, Jupiter, the biggest planet in the solar system, the planet that brings abundance, hope, and faith and optimism, is boundaryless, seeks out new territory, moves in big ways, is on the quest, basically. And that's what I should say with this planet, is the quest. Traditionally, is a benefic. It brings, in a sense, good vibes, good fortune. That's not always the case, and I'll touch upon that here in a second. It's in Aries, which is a fire sign, a raw fire cardinal sign, which likes to initiate and do things. Jupiter's throwing its buoyancy into Aries, and wherever this is in your chart, which I'm going to talk about, you should expect that influx of energy. You had a hint of it. You had a hint of this in May of this year, into June, into the summer. Then it stopped going forward, went retrograde, and it came all the way back to where we are right now when it ingresses here on December 20th. In general, Aries is about the will and pushing its will into the world, the self-assertiveness of Aries. It originally, its ruling planet being Mars, having to push oneself into the world in many different ways. With Jupiter being here, it's magnified. So this is a transitional energy, a cardinal energy. Just so happens to be happening the week of another cardinal switch up, which happens on the next day when we have the winter/summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, winter in the northern hemisphere of another cardinal sign, Capricorn, which is going to go in, which then leads in to a new moon later in the week at 1 degree Capricorn, which is affected by this Jupiter in Aries. So let's just take a quick look at this chart. You could see 0 degrees there, and this is happening with a Scorpio moon that just passed over the South Node, which has been the eclipse story for the last year. But we always want to look to the ruler of a particular planet in a sign, and we look to the ruler of Aries, and that's Mars. And Mars, as you have been paying attention, has been retrograde in Gemini for a little bit now, and the transit started at the end of August. It isn't ending until spring of next year. It stops going retrograde in July of 2023, and then still has to go over the whole process of reviewing for the 3rd time. But anyway, you want to pay attention to this at least until Mars goes into Cancer for the spring, because Mars is going to be flavoring this Jupiter in Aries transit and is the backbone and the engine of the Jupiter in Aries transit. So there's that. I want to show you something else, because this is 0 degree here. I'm going to throw this up here. This chart here, actually, and I will, since I'm doing this a little differently, here's May 10th, 2022. 4:22 Pacific. That was when Jupiter first hit 0 degrees earlier this year, when it was in Pisces for the first part of the year. And you could see here that at that point Mars was in Pisces, but you could see Jupiter entered there. Venus was in Aries, and there's the Chiron story that's involved here, which is involved in this transit, because eventually here Jupiter is going to conjunct Chiron here when we get into next year, and that's a pivotal moment in the Chiron and Aries story, and for all Aries people, all planets, people who have planets in Aries. Another chart I'm going to show you before I talk about each sign, actually, and if I wonder if I got this correctly, yeah, I think I do. Let me bust this out right here, because this chart in particular is the chart when Jupiter went retrograde and it went all the way back to at 0 degrees Aries. You could see it's October 27th, 2022. The reason why I'm giving you these charts and looking at this is because if you're affected by this transit in the beginning of these beginning points of Aries, you could kind of track and see what was going on in the Aries part of your chart around that time. And now we're hitting the third entry of Jupiter into Aries, and you could tie your story together, which is a story of a self-assertiveness and the time standing into and taking of one's power. But at the retrograde part of this, that power is going in a review process and having to reconfigure what Jupiter and Aries is doing to that Aries part of your chart. So that's how it works. You could see back then that we had just come out of a not too long of a Venus in conjunct the Sun in Scorpio, which you could see right here, so on and so forth. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna try to just get this going. Whatever. Okay, so if you were an Aries, I always do these. If you're watching on YouTube, other astrologers, they're gonna talk about each sign. They're doing it a certain way. They're casting these charts and doing these predictions or forecasting for you by the rising sign. So you got to know your rising sign here for it to make real sense. If you don't, you get a free app. You go to astro.com, astroseek.com. You can get your chart done. If you want me to, I'll send you a chart for free. You can contact me. You'll see my info down below, so on and so forth. Before we start, if you're into what I'm doing here and into what I'm going to keep doing, hit the subscribe button. Help me out here. Hit the bell. Hit the bell, because on Wednesday, the 21st, on the solstice, I'm going to do a live stream, a live call-in show where you can actually call in and I'll do your chart on screen and talk to you. Okay, so there's that. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. Now, we'll start with Aries Rising. If you're an Aries Rising, this Jupiter transit is happening in your first house. The first house deals with like your core vitality and how you present yourself to the world. It's the place of you. It's this place of me, right? And so it's kind of where the personality shows itself, and what you show besides your sun sign. The first house is as personality, vitality, presentness that you're showing. Actually can deal with your physical body too. So Jupiter coming into the Aries Rising first house is a huge fire under your what, and pushing that vitality and wanting to push further the will and the core and the surging through your veins. The energy and the buoyancy of Jupiter is entering in that area and wants to propel you. And remember, it's 5 months of this. It's not going to be easy. Careful of how you impose your will into the world, and how, that you don't push people over, because this is what can happen with Aries energy, is that kind of pushing through and not seeing anybody else. It's instinctual. It's me now, do me. And that's great. It's great if you have a story when you're not used to putting yourself in the world and having to prove oneself in the world. But when it's in this first house, it actually affects your vitality in general. Just be careful of overdoing it. And what happens with Aries energy, it can burn hot fast and die out. So you got to regulate that stuff. All right, we're going to get to Taurus risings. This is happening in the 12th house part of your chart, which deals with a more chill, contemplative place, sometimes an intuitive place for more modern astrology. But, you're dealing with sometimes sorrow and grief. This is the house of sorrow and grief. To me, I like to look at it as a place of like, it's your basement or attic. And a lot of times when you're dealing with the 12th house, especially with Jupiter and Aries here, there's like a inward a clearing out of your attic and basement, and the philosophizing about this and seeking the truth there. And in a sense, we had Aries rising imposing its will into the world. And in the 12th house, it's kind of in reverse in my mind. And this is the place of isolation. So it's more of an inward quest that's going on, a self-quest. But I think here is something very important for your Taurus risings. Considering what you've been through with the eclipses in the last year, considering Uranus being in your sign, shaking things up since 2018, is that this actually contributes to your sense of self-worth and value. It doesn't seem like it because it's in the 12th house. But if you do the internal work, you clear out what is not of worth, what is not of worth anymore, and in a sense deal with some of a past stories of misfortune, so on and so forth, and clear that out. Eventually, you get a huge another reward coming your way, because once Jupiter leaves Aries in 2023 in May, it enters Taurus, and that's a whole nother video. So you Taurus risings, you got to do some cleaning house first on an internal, intuitive place. You feel me? All right, we get into the next sign, which is Gemini risings, Jupiter and Aries in its buoyancy and its power and its quest-seeking qualities is entering the place in your chart that deals with friendships and groups and community. Also, this is the place they deal with like hopes and wishes and so on and so forth, alliances. Think about alliances and friends and groups, and you're going to have some buoyancy and newfound fire enter into that part of your chart. And you could use some of this. I think it's interesting because if you're a Gemini rising right now, you have Mars and Gemini in your first house on your rising sign too, and it's going backwards and it's retrograde and it's fueling part of this Jupiter and Aries. You're in your 11th house of friendships and alliances and so on and so forth. So I think there's a good influx here. I don't think it's going to really start flowing there until springtime, but you're going to get a hit of this. And you can look back to those 2 dates earlier that I showed earlier in this video, but that's the part of your chart where it's hitting. Don't push it too hard, but think about what it takes to overcome fears and to be confident in that area part of your chart, and to ask to collaborate and speak what you need for yourself first with your friends and groups of people that you're involved in. The next we have Cancer risings. This is happening in the place of your chart that deals with career, your social status, your reputation, fame, so on and so forth. And since you're a cardinal sign too, you're definitely affected by this. I think in a way you can take and learn from the Aries archetype of putting oneself forth in a fiery way, and you're used to being Cancer rising where you're living in a moon ruled way, and here is a Mars ruled way. And so here I think this is huge. It creates a caustic relationship with your rising sign. It squares it, but it really affects not only the place I talked about, your 10th house of public status, your reputation, but it actually affects yourself, your relationships, and home and family. They're all tied into this. We'll focus on the 10th house right now. Put yourself forward there. I think you've had some practice earlier this year with this, with the 2 other times of Jupiter and its quest and need to expansion and to break past new boundaries in the career part of your chart. All right, so next we have the Leos and my Leo risings. This is happening in the house of foreign travel, spirituality, religion, faith, and the seeking of higher knowledge. This 9th house is kind of like the graduate school, or when you get on a plane to go to a foreign place, you're touching upon new places, new ideas, new smells, things you've never have heard or encountered before, and you're bringing those truths into your world. The 9th house deals with this types of stuff, and it's more on a spiritual trip too, and faith is involved here. So think of yourself on a quest or a pilgrimage. And Jupiter and Aries is bringing courageous factor in here, a fiery, courageous factor. And this flows with your Leo rising. You want this. You need to show yourself. You need to prove yourself in this area of the chart. And Jupiter brings that huge, abundant energy of self in Aries into that quest-seeking, higher knowledge part of your world. When we get into the Virgo risings in the 8th house, we're dealing with an interesting place, I think, in the more modern terms. I think it deals with one-on-one intimacy. We're also dealing with, you hear inheritances and legacies and death. I'm not predicting death here, but it's a place where you're dealing with also intertwined and shared resources. So this Jupiter's expansiveness and buoyancy in Aries and bringing that self-courageous, self-assertive energy, you might be in dealings with other people's resources. Not only that, you might be speaking more of what you need for your personal self and how you do that, your will, with intimate others or intimate situations. I also think sometimes you could see major gains coming from other people's resources here, but I think you have to not let it come to you. You have to be self-assertive in that way. That's the Aries part. Self-assertive in this part of your chart in those storylines for those gains to come. And I also think you have to be careful of not, of being a little too assertive and thinking, well, this is mine. Now, my Virgo risings in general, you could be assertive mentally. You're ruled by Mercury. I don't see you like maybe another fire sign, like going, hey, give me what's mine, when it's off balance. But you do have to be careful of just once you get locked in, not, to feel out how you're dealing with other people's resources and so on and so forth. The other one little thing I'll throw in here is fears. Things that you fear here can show up in this part of your chart. And I think Jupiter and Aries, you could tackle those fears and take them on and get to a deeper place with those fears and then stand stronger in your self-assertiveness in that part of your chart. So we go to the next sign, which is my Libra risings. This is happening in your house of relationships, partnerships, get all types of partnerships and relationships, your spouse, your friends, family, in a sense. You're going to catch it more with different types of relationships. The old school thing is open enemies part of your chart here. But you Libra risings, basically, this is the opposite sign of you. You can always learn something from a Aries. You can always learn something from a Libra. Being Venus ruled, you're going to always seek tranquility and harmonization in your world. With Jupiter going into Pisces in your 7th, you could have an influx of energy dealing with your partnerships. Someone on the outside of you is going to be more self-assertive with you and push your boundaries and get you out of wanting to keep things balanced no matter what. And or you state your needs first and foremost in relationships in a way that you don't normally do or people aren't used to. So it's like, it's a thing where you take a little bit of the Aries energy on and you show your version of aggressiveness, actually, which could be very interesting with the Libra rising. And also, there's a confidence that comes here. There's a type of confidence that will come in to your house of relationships and partnerships, and that can be beneficial to how lucky you feel, Jupiter, how buoyant and hopeful you feel, and the faith to go tackle through anything in these partnerships. And if that's the positive way, the other part of it is the aggressiveness. I don't see you being that way per se because you're Venus ruled, but if you don't know how to wield that power, I could see you passing some boundaries. We get into Scorpio risings. This is happening in your house of illness, in a sense, body. Sometimes pets are involved here. It's a place of like work, in a sense, of the little day-by-day activities that you do, the little things that get you through the day. A lot of times you're going to see this, though, with the body and certain issues with the body and illness. Remember, it's not necessarily you. It could be happening with somebody else around you, too. And Jupiter here, kind of in Aries, kind of pushes it out. It's a type of thing, it's almost like going into a sauna or something and having to sweat things out there. And I think too, you also found a new way of in general for, I think, this kind of transit Jupiter and Aries, there's the thing of self-reliance and being self-assertiveness. And if you do that in combination with the 6th house, with your body and illness and how you work, how you serve, in a sense, this really affects you because you're Mars ruled. So you're really sensitive to this. So you're not just going to look to your 6th house. You're going to also look to to your 1st house here, which is Mars ruled, and also the other Jupiter ruled houses in your chart. But no matter what, I think here, if you haven't been taking care of your body, I think you're going to see some things here and a chance for you to regulate things. And I think this is a good time to create regimens and practices to get into your physicalness of your body and to purge and sweat toxins and so on and so forth, and create a system for you to deal with expression. And it's very important for Mars ruled people, I think, to sweat, to express themselves, because when that stuff gets clogged up and it's inside, especially with Scorpio rising, there's usually some sort of situation where there's a power control situation or some sort of power struggle or manipulation going on, whether you're doing it or somebody else is doing it. You want to take care of that Mars part of your chart and take care of your body. Sagittarius risings, this is happening in your 5th house of creative vibes, creative expression. This place also deals with children. In a sense, the old school ways, they talk about this is a fortunate house too. You're going to have Jupiter coming in there to double, triple, quadruple down on the fortune. I think here is you as a rising sign that's fire, you being Jupiter ruled. This is some good times for the most part. I think to show your love, in your creativity to the world, to your intimate others, into your sexuality, all that type of stuff. It's there, it's flowing, and it's to seek out and have pleasures. Now, don't drink it all. Don't eat it all. Be consistent and chill with how you push boundaries, because this is, as any Sag knows, and Sagittarius risings, or people like this, they'll go way too far. And even when it's off kilter and it's not working well, they'll say, "Oh, everything's good, everything's fine. Come on, let's do it again. Come on, I'll buy a round." It's like that's what could happen here, and you got to be careful. Not only that, there's a certain type of preaching of one's truth. And if one has Jupiter and Aries going in the 5th house and it's happening in a creative, expressive way, it could come across, you could charm anybody. You could get what you want. You could preach your truth. It's just how you do it. And if you're overdoing it, and that's the key thing here, is careful what you're overdoing. If you overdo something in the 5th house, at the same time, enjoy life's pleasures. I know you will. And remember, as a mutable sign, to keep it to 1 or maybe 2 things, okay? So the next time we're going to deal with this Capricorn, and you Capricorn risings, this is happening in the house of your foundations, your past memories, family, home, all that stuff. And so you have to think on a deeper level, because Jupiter wants to get to the higher truth. And in Aries, it's about where do I stand at home? Where do I stand in lineage and ancestry? And there could be a connection to this of how you show yourself within those spaces. And the confidence you show in family structures, right? And this is good, I think, for Capricorn rising, because they have a tendency to worry, being Saturn ruled. And here, it could be difficult at first because of Jupiter squaring your rising sign and opposing your house of career, and also hitting and squaring your relationship house. So all your angles in your chart, 1st, 10th, 7th, and 4th, are affected. But predominantly, there's a storyline of home and the past and memories here, and where you stand. And if you need to put yourself first in a family dynamic situation, this is the time to do it. It's just how assertive you can get. You guys could be ice cold and businesslike in how you do things. This Jupiter and Aries can fuel that and create caustic situations. So try to be a little artful with this. And I know you can have the confidence, but be careful of pushing that too hard in family dynamics and structures. If you're doing some research on family and looking at the past, this is the good thing to dig up of how you stand in the past and what gold you can glean from the past and insert it into like your identity. And then eventually that identity, which supports the bottom of the chart, will actually affect your career part of your chart. So the next sign we'll deal with is Aquarius Risings. And this is happening in your 3rd house of siblings, neighbors, the beginning of mind process, so on and so forth. So you got some quick thinking that's about to happen here. And I think you're digging that because you've had some Saturn in your world since 2020, but I think this 3rd house here is going to make you walk out of the house a little bit more and check out your immediate surroundings. It's going to make you, you might have more interactions with your immediate surroundings about where you live, more conversations and interactions when dealing with siblings, if you have them, and how you stand personally in that, and how you put your will and yourself in that. And sometimes we can have a detached feeling here for the Aquarius rising where they need their space in general. But I think here you step forward into a space dealing with your immediate surroundings and siblings and neighbors, so on and so forth. The other part of this chart, they deal with short journeys. Now, short journeys is what I mean. Like you step outside of your house and you start to explore a little bit. The other part of this is the I thinking part of just the beginnings of formulation of how you think. Not the higher philosophical level, but to go on a quest with just different ways of thinking and different tools you can bring into your world of how you start to configure thought processes. Am I already at the end, I think, here, my Pisces risings? You guys are always at the end, aren't you? Listen, this is happening in your second house of money, resources, assets, wealth, value systems in a sense in the modern end. You got Jupiter coming in here. I think this is just good for you. It might feel funky to put yourself forward as a Pisces rising, but remember, you're Jupiter ruled, just like Sag, just like the Sagittarians. So it's like, this is a good one. I think you have to be careful, I think, of like overdoing over whatevers. But I think here, if you initiate and put your worth and your value, your self-worth first and foremost, and you put that together, whether it's at work or in a project or an idea you have to generate resources and income, you're going to have the energy, the buoyancy, and a little bit of luck with Jupiter here pushing your way. You just have to stay consistent. One thing Aries is going to give you is the cardinal sign that it is that push and that drive. Is you being a Pisces rising and you being a mutable sign, you have a tendency to get scattered. Now, Jupiter being in there, Jupiter rules your Pisces sign. You work this as much as you can for the next 5 months. Don't lose focus. And here's a word you all going to like. This is for everybody, but you Pisces people are going to like. Faith is involved in here in this too. Faith is part of the Jupiter language. That faith to that dream and vision you have that you love so much, the visions that you have, you get to pinpoint it and have a fiery core drive these things in your house of money. Money. And it's not a type of thing, by the way, to go, oh, I'll be Pisces rising and I'll walk out the door and everything will just happen to me. Lucky you, sometimes it does. Here's if you're self-assertive and you put yourself out there and you stay focused, it'll happen more than you ever know. But you have to have your foot on the gas pedal and you have to be driving the wheel. You just can't let go of the wheel like everything's going to be okay. You got to put your hands on there and be assertive. Feel me? And that is my video, a quick one that I've done impromptu here about Jupiter and Aries. There's more to this. It's going to make certain aspects. The new moon that's going to happen here on the 21st and 2nd here this week is affected by Jupiter. Jupiter squares the new moon. There's a squaring off going on with the Capricorn Jupiter cardinal energy. You got cardinal signs. It's going to affect you. No matter what, this week brings a major fundamental shift because it's the change of the season. And not only that, we've had a lot of mutability lately, a huge year of fixed stuff. There is a major beginning happening here. I won't say ending. I will say beginning. Something is cardinal energy and when the seasonal change happens, the cardinal means to initiate. The signs afterwards, after the next month are fixed, they take what's initiated and they keep it going, the fixed signs. And after that, the next signs are always mutable. They're getting ready to change what's there to the next cycle that happens. Let's say in this case, when spring comes, we have another cycle that happens. So there you go. Be careful throwing the Aries energy around. Special message here. Your Mars ruled sign? Okay. But for my people who've been dealing with Chiron and Aries, Jupiter's coming for Chiron. It's going to hit that space. Listen, right where we're talking right now, I'm going to look it up really quick. I want to know when this happens. Okay, so let me stop this right here. I might have gone way too far, Nicholas. And if you want to still watch me do this, I'm going to put this chart up on the screen. I'll stop there. So when Jupiter when Jupiter hits this spot, it's going to bring up the story of your Chiron. When we looked to February-ish, and for those of you still watching this, I'm going on a tangent right now. I could have just finished this thing, but I'm going to show you something right here. This chart is 27th of February, right? You could see this. I just randomly went to this. You could see right here where Jupiter is at 11 degrees and it's waxing towards the aspect with Chiron. Just so happens, look at Venus and Aries is going on there. February into March is going to be no joke for the Aries people. And if you got stuff close to these degrees that are cardinal in Aries, or you're going through Chiron return, you got to prepare yourself for this. It could be ultimately healing in this last several years story of Chiron and Aries. But before that happens, it gets, I think, a little more than a little rough. And it just depends on how you've been dealing with the story. If you notice in the chart too, around that day, look at Mars is out of the retrograde and it's still in Gemini at that point, ruling all this. So the word, the mind process, and how you've been dealing with this for the last 7 months. Gemini Risings, Geminis, and the Aries. This is a connection that's going on here, and a huge moment of buoyancy on the quest of healing in the Aries part of your chart. That's my bonus thing for you today. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get ready for a huge call-in live stream that's going to happen on Wednesday, the 21st. I'm thinking about doing it at 1 p.m. Pacific if you happen to catch this video before then. If you like what I do, if you're into what I want to do, and I got some stuff coming your way, hit the subscribe button. Go to my website, Sparkles of Gold. Follow me on IG. Don't follow me on Twitter because that thing is a burning piece of dumpster fire. And as always, I see you. I see you. Until the next time, my friends, I'll see you.